Have you ever looked at a globe and just assumed that what you're seeing is permanent? It's a really comforting thought, right? But what if I told you the world map you learned in school is, well, it's practically a lie? Our planet is actually this slow motion graveyard of continents, and the geography we think of as fixed, it's really nothing more than a temporary snapshot.
Today, we're diving into Sunken Worlds, the hidden history of drowned continents. We're going to take a journey that starts with cold, hard geological science and then slowly descends into the creeping, almost philosophical dread of human memory and shifting coastlines. We're looking at the unsettling realization that our oceans are hiding a whole lot more than we think.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Earth's Drowned Continents, the Hard Science of Sinking Lands. Before we get into ancient maps and human memory, we really need to ground ourselves in reality, because massive landmasses do actually vanish from the face of the Earth. Take Zealandia, for example. 94%, that is the staggering amount of the continent of Zealandia currently sitting at the absolute bottom of the ocean. We're talking about a landmass roughly the size of the Indian subcontinent, just hiding beneath the southwestern Pacific. New Zealand? It isn't just an island nation. It's literally just the exposed 6% of this massive hidden continent. And the craziest part? Scientists only officially recognized this enormous sunken world in 2017. It just hid in plain sight for decades.
And it gets even stranger. Consider Greater Adria. This was a Greenland-sized landmass that literally forms the corpse beneath Europe. About 100 million years ago, this independent continent completely slammed into what would eventually become Europe. Most of it was subducted, driven straight down into the Earth's mantle. But its scraped off surface remained. So every single time you look at a picture of the limestone in Italy or the marble that built the Roman Colosseum, you are actually looking at the recycled corpse of a dead, vanished continent. Now fast forward to 2013. Scientists were analyzing beach sands from the young volcanic island of Mauritius, and they found something that should be impossible. They discovered these near-indestructible zircon crystals up to 1.97 billion years old, trapped inside volcanic rock that was only 9 million years old. So how does that happen? Well, the math only works if an ancient continental fragment, basically a splinter of a massive, ancient crust, is hiding right now, buried deep beneath the Indian Ocean.
All right, let's move into Section 2, the Ice Age Human Toll, when the map drowned us.
We're shifting from deep geological time into human time here because sometimes the map drowns entirely realized civilizations. Enter Doggerland. Now, this wasn't just some muddy strip of land. It was a sprawling landscape larger than the United Kingdom, and it existed totally within the memory of modern humans. In 1931, a fishing trawler dragged up an 8-inch, hand-carved, barbed antler harpoon from the literal bottom of the North Sea. That one single artifact proved beyond a doubt that humans lived, hunted, and thrived on a forest floor that is now under 120 feet of cold, dark salt water. And the demise of Doggerland? It was terrifyingly fast. For generations, as the Ice Age ended around 12,000 years ago, sea levels crept up slowly. Rivers became estuaries, and then those estuaries became open sea. But the final blow was sudden. Around 6,200 BC, an enormous underwater landslide off the coast of Norway, known as the Storegga Slide, triggered a massive tsunami. A wave exceeding 80 feet struck what remained of Doggerland. The final lowland territories and the people living there were completely wiped out in mere hours. Then we have Beringia. You've probably heard it called the Bering Land Bridge, but honestly, it wasn't a narrow bridge at all. It was a vanished subcontinent covering 1.6 million square kilometers. That's larger than modern Alaska and the Yukon combined. Genetic evidence actually shows that an entire branch of humanity evolved on this massive grassy plain in total isolation for 10 millennia, 10,000 years. Then the creeping seas slowly drowned their world, forcing them to migrate and eventually become the ancestors of every indigenous population in the Americas. Which brings us to a really fascinating turn. Section 3, Maps That Knew Too Much, the Cartographic Anomalies. Here is where the story shifts into a profound mystery. Because if modern science says these lands sank tens of thousands of years ago, why do anomalies matching their exact shapes persist on centuries-old maps? Take Mercator's famous 1569 map. Up in the far north, where there should just be empty ocean, he drew Hyperborea, a continent with 4 large landmasses surrounding a central polar sea. He based this on lost ancient 14th century texts and Greek sources. Now, mainstream history writes this off as pure myth. But here's the thing.
Modern sonar scans of the Arctic Ocean seabed reveal the Lomonosov and Gackel ridges, and they divide the Arctic basin in a way that bears an unsettling approximate resemblance to Mercator's four-part structure. How on earth could a 16th century mapmaker know the structural logic of a seabed that wouldn't be mapped until we invented modern sonar?
And then there's the Piri-Reis map of 1513. Discovered in Istanbul in 1929 and drawn on gazelle skin, it was compiled from 20 older source maps, some supposedly tracing all the way back to the burned Library of Alexandria. This map arguably depicts the northern coastline of Antarctica, but here is the massive catch. It depicts it without ice. Modern science tells us Antarctica hasn't been ice-free in that region for at least 6,000 years. So how did a 16th century Ottoman admiral draw a coastline that was buried under a mile of ice, thousands of years before human civilization supposedly invented marine cartography? It's an anomaly that historians still struggle to explain today.
Let's bring this all together in our final section, Section 4, the unsettling convergence, myth, memory, and the Ice Age.
Let's synthesize all of this for a second. Look at the Tamil Sangam literature from India. These ancient texts catalog distinct eras. The first two lasted thousands of years, and both ended with a massive southern motherland being swallowed by the sea in specific catastrophic floods. Now that sounds like a myth, right? Except modern bathymetric surveys reveal that during the last ice age, the Chagos-Laccadive Ridge just south of India was exposed, dry land. The literature's specific claims of a drowned southern territory perfectly align with the actual submerged geography that was exposed during the last glacial maximum. And that brings us to the ultimate sunken land, Atlantis. Back in 360 BC, Plato wrote that Atlantis was destroyed by floods and earthquakes exactly 9,000 years before his time. That translates to roughly 11,600 years ago. Now cross-reference that with modern geological science. When did the last ice age end, triggering a catastrophic global sea level rise that drowned coastlines worldwide? Exactly 11,600 years ago. The chronological match is literal perfection.
Now, we aren't saying Atlantis is a proven fact here, but just observe the convergence of these threads. We have Egyptian priestly traditions of catastrophic ice age flooding, a timeline that precisely matches post-glacial sea level rise, locations matching known submerged Atlantic plateaus, persistent cartographic traditions across millennia, and global flood myths from totally independent cultures all over the world. You have to admit, it is a profound and incredibly unsettling string of coincidences.
So we are left with two very uncomfortable truths. Option 1. It is all just an extraordinary coincidence. Plato, ancient mapmakers, and indigenous cultures all around the globe just got incredibly lucky with their timelines and geography. Or Option 2. Human civilizations have preserved terrifyingly accurate records across 11,600 years of survival, watching their worlds drown and somehow passing that geographic memory down through hundreds and hundreds of generations.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful thought. The map of Earth's continents that we believe to be complete is not complete. It is a surface impression of a planet whose true geological biography remains largely underwater. Think about that. The world map you know is merely a temporary, fleeting snapshot of a planet in constant flux.
If entire subcontinents can drown and hide in plain sight, and if our ancestors managed to remember them long enough to sketch their ghosts onto our oldest maps, I want to leave you with this one lingering question. What else is down there, sleeping beneath the dark oceans, just waiting to be found? Thank you for joining me for this explainer. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, keep questioning the map.